Hello, this video is about how autism, I got diagnosed with autism, and so I'll tell you what I think about autism as somebody who got diagnosed with autism. So I'll tell you about the autistics from an autistic, and I'm not a person who's into labels. So it's not like a regular autism video, because people always are like, I'm autistic, let me tell you about autism. And they're like, I'm autistic kid and stuff, and I haven't watched any of those videos in forever. In fact, I think I will today, though. I think I will today now that I'm interested in it. But I just wanted to tell you what I think about it now that I am it. So back in 2015, I got a DUI for marijuana in Rocky Mountain National Park. And I was going to represent myself in court, so to try to stay out of jail. This world is so fucked up. Fucking idiot legislators and cops. Luckily, they let me go. Fucking trying to shoot their own citizens in the foot. But, yeah, I had Medicaid, so I went in to get see if I could get an autism diagnosis, because I could just help that with the whole court thing. And I did get diagnosed with autism, but she said she couldn't decide if I was autistic or had persecuted personality disorder. So, because I was telling her about how I get kicked out of school, and so but I thought it had all reasoning. But she, this is a woman, she man hit her, I don't know. But I looked it up, and that's not a thing. It doesn't exist. There is no persecuted personality disorder. So it's like, she was like, oh, I don't know if you have it or not, but I guess so. But whatever. So. Anyway, I got on DVR, and I think my mom went another psych eval, so I got the other psych eval, and he diagnosed me with autism. So I got autism twice, and so yesterday I got diagnosed with an autism, and it seemed like this dude was taking it way more seriously than that other girl. And it looked like he had more experience too, he's older and stuff, but I got diagnosed yesterday with level 1 autism. Out of 3. So level 1 is like the normal autistics who seem normal. Level 2, I don't know who that is, but level 3 is like the type who don't even talk, like Rain Man. The people who have trouble speaking, what's that guy's name? The dude who Rain Man was built after. So yeah, and it was as a result of this test that I took couple weeks ago or something. I don't even remember how long. Maybe it was a month. I don't know. But I've been smoking so much weed, dude. I can't remember anything. But it's basically a test to see how much general knowledge you have. Like, they asked me how long it took for light to get from the sun to the earth. 8 minutes, 20 seconds. That's something an autistic person would know. And how big the Earth is around, that's 24,000 miles. I said 20,000 miles. But then it's just like a series of testing your photographic memory, and then testing your auditory memory. So they'll show you a bunch of drawings, and then you have to recreate the drawing. They give you 10 seconds to memorize it. And then they just randomly say a bunch of names, and you're supposed to randomly say those names back. And I was pretty much useless at that, dude. But it's mainly because my brain is melted from the weed. But it's basically a test to see if you're stronger just memorizing grids and patterns that you see than finding the right words or knowing the definitions of words, and then also maybe remembering the details of a story. And so I think I qualified as autistic because I scored highly with general knowledge. And even though I'm smoking shitloads of weed, I probably did okay with the photographic memory, and then not good in comparison with the finding specific words for things. Yes, and I do have kind of trouble finding the word for stuff. When I was a kid, I forgot to find a word for a pear once, but because I think autistic people are good at when they have a frame of reference, right? And so if you just give me a bunch of random names without any frame of reference, I'm not going to remember that, because like the way that an autistic mind works is all connected with everything else. And so the way that I'm going to find out what the proper answer is by triangulating from everything else I know and then guessing, and it's always right. So like, yeah, so like don't just not just like random. That's why like the non autistics aren't good at nonverbal cues. And I don't outwardly pick up on nonverbal cues, but I do pick up on the nonverbal cues. It's just that I ignore them, Like I remember I was with this rich lady down in Texas a few years ago, and I was talking about how these two older ladies, and it was in the morning, and they're talking about like the sun or whatever, sunset, and I just mentioned, I was like, yeah, Bashar, this alien said, if you can stare at the sun right when it starts, it like can increase your life or something. And she rolled her eyes at me. She goes, like, obviously. And I noticed it and everything, but I like wanted to be polite. And so I pretended that I didn't notice it, but that's like what an autistic person does. They notice it, but they want to be polite, and they pretend they not, and then they get accused of not noticing, where a normal person would be like, what? Flustered that they got like their eyes rolled at them or whatever. And that's actually very common knowledge. It's kind of a bitch to do that. It's common knowledge that like in Ayurvedic and Indian, like if you those guys like to stare at the sun, dude, in the morning, when it's still like just coming up. Just stare at it a little bit, so it doesn't burn out your eyes. Yeah, and then like, or you be there in the morning for the first light of the energy to filter through your atmosphere. It's not that wacky of a concept, but anyway, that kind of a thing. Because I remember as a kid, I always wanted to be polite, and people would do all their nonverbal cues and stuff, and I would just like, I think autistic people notice nonverbal cues just as well, if not better, than everybody else. It's just that they're politer about it because they're more focused on the actual data, and they don't want to get caught up. They don't rely on the nonverbal cues because we are more focused than other people on the actual data. And so, yeah, let me tell you just what I think about the difference between autistic people and non-autistic people. As an autistic person who doesn't like labels, and so it's kind of bizarre for me to describe. So I'm just going to do it like triangulating it, okay? So, and we'll do it with 3. So look, I got diagnosed with autism twice, so I'm autistic, okay? I've always been different and not fit in, number 2. And number 3, I know in certain ways how my brain works differently. So I'll put those together, and I'll try to, and we'll see if other autistic people understand what the hell I'm talking about. So yeah, now, yeah, I never fit in, and it really got bad in 4th grade, but that was probably partially because I just didn't. It was a cult, you can't fit in cults if you show up as a new dude. I was Vidya Buddhist school in North Boulder. I was there for kindergarten, the end of kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, and then I did 3rd grade at Uni Hill, and then 4th grade at Vidya. By the time I went back to 4th grade, all the kids were playing G.I. Joe and Dungeons and Dragons, and I was a bike racer. And so I was trying to get kids to do like Capture the Flag and like King of the Hill and soccer and tag, and because there was this huge like campus out in North Boulder with plenty of room to run around, and all the other kids wanted to do was sit down and role play like they were inside, and then they were, and so anyway, and that didn't work out, and I actually got kicked. I didn't get kicked out, but I left 2 weeks before the end of school. But so I think one difference is like, and then and I can, and just generally talking about things and where people get frustrated with me versus not. And I think the difference between, well, at least me and I think autistic tendencies is autistic people are have an insatiable desire to understand all of it all the time, and it's such an insatiable desire to understand all of it that they're willing to let go of the myopic stuff. Like if you have to if you have to like budget your brain, you know, and you can't understand everything, you have to kind of to focus on one thing. You have to kind of let go of things and so the stuff the autistic person would kind of not pay attention to would be like I'm saying the nonverbal cues, but this is all on purpose. It's not like accidental. But then maybe as you go on in life, you kind of get habitually like that because nonverbal cues aren't the actual data, aren't what you're saying. So they're only interested in what you're saying. You can jump around and make monkey faces and like ooh ooh ah ah and dance all your nonverbal cues all you want, and I don't give a fuck. I'm trying to talk to you with words, right? And that's kind of one difference. And I think people do nonverbal cues because they can't find the words because they don't have anything to say, and so that's kind of like neurotypical person basically going monkey again. You know how monkeys do the monkey faces? They're just reverting back into the primitive, where the autistic person is trying to think like a computer. You know, I think it's like autistic people are actually more similar to people in the future than regular people are. The regular people are more similar to the people in the past, and autistic people are to the future. Now, when I first saw Rain Man, and it's based off of a guy named Kim Peek. And so when I saw the movie, I was like, is this real? And I was like, holy fuck, because I didn't even know. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like magic. This is like freaking mutant stuff. So this guy, Kim Peek, he died of a heart attack a few years ago at 56. See, that's autism. Me like remembering like the data like that because I wanted to know. Like when I saw he died at 56, the reason I know that is because I try to plug it into everything. Every single kind of information I get, I try to plug it into everything else right away, which makes it kind of a little bit slower of a process. Like when I was growing up reading, I read really slowly because I had to understand all of it. But like his trick was that you could give him the date and he could tell you the day of the week. He knew the day of the week to any date. That was like his trick. And he knew it all of it, and it was like wowing people. And the reason that he could do that, and other than that, and he had a sense of humor, but other than that, he was like totally compromised. And you could see from the way that he looked and even physically the walked, like he put all of his eggs in the basket of learning, memorizing days and weeks, you know, and it costed him in the rest of his life. But and I think the way that he was able to do it was because his level of concentration and desire was so strong that he was just sitting there all the time thinking about the patterns, all the different patterns of the numbers and the days and just focused on it, and then he just knew it. And so because he focused on it so much, he wasn't able to do the other stuff. And so Dustin Hoffman's character, he was at one point they made like a bunch of money because he could count the cards because his memory was really good. But before that, they found out Tom Cruise finds out he's autistic because, or the powers of his autism because the waitress came up and had a badge and it had a first and last name, and he knew her phone number because he read the phone book the night before and connected names to phone numbers. And she's like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then they spilled like a pack of toothpicks, and he was like, oh, that's 325 toothpicks. And they looked at the thing and it said 325 toothpicks. And there was like, what the hell? And so, there was a kid here in Boulder Mall back when I was in high school or college or something who his trick was that it was one of those street performers they give tips to. And his trick was people would tell him where they came from in America, and he would tell them the zip code of where they were from. And so when I saw Rain Man, I was like, wow, dude, is this real? I guess it was supposed to be real. So I was like, so then I automatically, because I plugged it into everything, I was like, well, this must be where a human race in general is going, where everybody can memorize all of it in the future, because they have figured out a system in their brain to memorize stuff, and they'll piece it all together and triangulate. And so, and then I kind of, throughout life, I was like, I became obsessed with the idea of memorizing everything that happened in history. I thought it could be possible just because the autistics can remember stuff. And if you study and then if you utilize like color coding, font coding, and then, you know, the more that you learn, the quicker it becomes to learn. Like the more languages you learn, the easier it becomes to learn another language. The more history you learn, the easier it becomes to learn more history, because you use the knowledge that you have of history to learn more knowledge. And so that's why I came up with the idea of my timeline, my history timeline, to be able to constantly superimpose different parts of the world, different parts of history on top of each other, so that you could look at it together and then you could see the patterns, right? And so if you're studying like England from the 1500s, and then you go and you're studying Japan from the 1500s, England, Japan, and then you see like in 1634 they outlawed torture in England because they were torturing too many like Puritans and stuff who were like willingly dying for God, and they just got sick of it. So they outlawed torture. But at the same time, in like the same decade in Japan, Moshihara Yashiwara, whatever that guy, wrote the Five Swords, the Book of the Five Swords, and so that's kind of like the beginning of the samurai tradition. So the samurai tradition started the same decade as we got rid of the England got outlawed torture, and so I'm like, okay. England is more advanced culturally than Japan, and I don't know. So anyways, I was looking at my timeline, I was considering that, and I went through those processes in maybe a few seconds. Like that's like, and at least in my mind, that's the process. Like trying to come up with as many conclusions about something as you possibly can in as slow of a period as you can. Just constantly thinking as hard as you can, like you're at a race. So like trying to flood the data into your brain. So like if I'm looking at, and the only way to do that, the only way to do that is by having words, you're having the data available. So that means you have to make the information on the page as dense as possible. And so that's when I created the five column where it goes 20 down for 100 across. And so, yeah, I realized the magic numbers for my timeline are 5, 20, and 100. Because it's 5 columns across, 20 down in each one, and then 5 columns times 20 is 100. So you try to get 100 things in one screen so that you can just kind of speed read it. And so if you're flashing back and forth between two parts of the world at the same time, and you're reading through the things, like you're extremely quickly processing, like, because you're superimposing right next to each other at the same time, like the two worlds, and then the two worlds at the same time, and then coming up with conclusions, you know, like, and then you remember that stuff. That's the thing. The more different synapses you connect and the more different conclusions you come at the same time, the more you're going to remember, because they all augment each other. So, you know, like what I said about the Protestants coming back and getting tortured, that helped me remember that the torturing got outlawed. And now I'm visually seeing the torture symbol, this big red dot with these lightning bolts coming off the edge, and seeing the 1534. And then I remember comparing that to Moshiari Wushirwashi, or whatever his name was, the Book of the Ring or whatever. And then thinking that thought, you know, breathing the same oxygen at the same exact time, outlawing Italy, all those thoughts. And then you go do the next one. And then, you know, I could give you another example for another one, because the more thoughts you have, the more you're going to remember. And that's how I'm waiting on a wheel. Maybe this is it. It's awesome. It's my dirt jumper wheel, man. You're so fucking. And then I can ride the bike for the first time. I've never even ridden a dirt jumper before. Fuck yeah, dude. Maybe that's it. Anyway, yeah, dude, I'm not good at jumping bikes, dude. I'm too heavy. I'm like 185 pounds and I'm not fit. You have to hit those things fast. And my bike is like too squishy, so I'm looking forward to seeing if I can do it with this thing. Anyways, So, so that's how they do it though. They connect it, you know. Like my ex-wife had a boyfriend once. He's probably autistic, but she's like, he was like a mathematics professor in like Norway, and she's like, he had these amazing games with numbers like 11. He was told me something amazing about 11, and he asked me to like multiply stuff, and like he could multiply it in his head and stuff. And anyways, it all has to do with like with connections, like the spider web of knowledge and triangulating, you know, like you don't have to know, you don't have to randomly memorize something if you know all of the data around it, because then you can then paint a picture and then guess what it is, and then it'd be correct. And so you know, like when I was taking my history test and you give me the random number generator test, from 0 to 200 to guess whatever happened in a decade from 0 until 2000, in the 2000 year period, there's 200 decades. And then they want to know, say, what happened in the year 1560. Well, I maybe as an autistic person, or as me, see, I'm still having trouble labeling myself us autistics, because I'm so used to not fitting in that I automatically expect, if I'm like, we autistics, I automatically expect some other person to be like, motherfucker, I'm an autistic, it's not like that. And there's different types of autistics too, I don't know, but so anyways, but like I would utilize the triangulation method. Like if you wanted to, like if the random number generator said what happened in 1560, well, I go, well, instead of just randomly memorizing what happened in 1560, I would go, well, I know that in 1548 is when the Black Plague started. And so we're living in the world that's 12 years after the Black Plague. So I would just come to the conclusion that, oh, I guess we had the lowest population of Europe. And what's another side product of that? I would say social reform, where peasants are now able to travel, you know, because the people want to hire more peasants. There's not enough peasants. Everybody died, you know, and then lo and behold, oh, look, social reform, allowing peasants to travel, you know. And so it's not because I memorized that, but it was because I knew that what happened 12 years before. So it's like an autistic person needs to memorize everything. Like if you show them something, they're not going to be satisfied looking at that thing. They're going to want to step back and look at the whole thing and see where it is in the whole system, so that they can help memorize where it is. And they go, and I think the problem with autistics, like level 3 autistics, is their level of concentration is so strong and their techniques are so strong that they just got really good at one thing, and it was at the expense of everything else, and then they just ended up being like an idiot, you know. Like it's kind of like if you wanted to compare it with a level 1 autistic like me, it's kind of like messy hair, you know. Like I'll walk around town like that, without even without even worrying about it, you know. Like who walks around with hair like that? I'll do it because because like how a lot of autistics do, they sacrifice, right? They focus on one thing and sacrifice everything and focus on thing. I sacrifice my hair to stay ahead on the day, you know. I just wear the same t-shirt every day to because it saves time, you know. Whereas like because I'm trying to like, I have the big picture and I'm trying to memorize, do everything all at once. So it's just kind of the same thing with the brain. Like they're trying to memorize everything in this one thing, so they sacrifice. Or like an athlete, you know, like a power lifter who can't run 10 miles, you know, or a marathon runner or an ultra marathon runner who can't bench 50 pounds. Yeah, so then you have the autistic who can't talk to a normal person. But then it's like, well, but then if you want to take a step back, it's like, wait, what do you mean can't talk to? Because like, if you talk to an autistic person, why not just talk to them about what they want to talk about? And now you're talking to an expert. And it's kind of similar to a normal person. Like regular people, you can't talk to them like a super judgmental person. You can't talk to them about something that's outside of their like purview, like a fundamentalist Christian talking about reincarnation or like ancient aliens or ancient civilizations to a fundamentalist Christian, that person is like, could be neurotypical and be totally shut down to you, worse than any autistic, you know? So I think the problem, like this, all the drama between autistics and non-autistics not getting along and not understanding each other, is because the non-autistics outnumber the autistics. And so it gives them the kind of like the boldness to stand over them and say that like they're right to like not be interested in things, you know, be like random, just random memorization of stuff without any rhyme or reason to it is like totally fine, because like they don't have to know as much, they just have to remember that one thing. So I don't know. So that's my take on that, you know. And as far as like the skin thing, yeah, that was like not wanting my skin to touch, that's for real, and that's an autistic thing. For me, it's like, you know, it's like a practical thing. Like, why would you be dirty with clean hair? Wouldn't it be with combed hair? Isn't it way better to have messy hair but be clean? You know, why would your body be dirty wearing a clean shirt? Wouldn't you be better off with a clean body and a dirty shirt? You know, it's just logic. Like, I think maybe autistic people are just more logical. And as far as like interacting with people, autistic people have a tendency of like having bad experiences as friends and then ending up with no friends because they have that. And the exact goddamn thing happened to me. Like, I have zero friends because most of the friends I've had were like the types of people you can't make friends with. And like at the age of 51, I finally fucking realized it. And here, if you're like 20 or 30 or whatever, let me give you a warning. Like, and this is actually not my fault though. This was my parents' fault. Like, I wanted to be a bike racer since I was 10. And what my parents didn't understand was that, like, you can be a bike racer and not win and still want to be a bike racer and enjoy it and still think that you're good at bike racing. Because my parents got convinced that I wasn't good at bike racing because, like, I wasn't winning. But I wasn't winning because I was, like, number one, physically, I was younger than everybody. My birthday is December 27th. And so I was racing, and they did it by what year you were born. So I was racing against kids who were born in, like, March. And when you're 10, 11, 12, like, 8 months is enough to give you a big advantage, right? But also, for my age, I was also underdeveloped. I was skinnier and shorter, just genetically. You know, I'm 5'10" now, but I'm like like when I was like in first and second grade or whatever, I was like as tall as kids who were like 5'4", 5'3" now, you know, like I was a little guy, a little skinny dude. But on top of, okay, where did that come from? Oh yeah, for the bike racing, where I wasn't winning. But then also, you know, I wasn't like training, like the last year that I raced bikes, the very last year I raced road bikes in 1987 when I was 13, did the Red Zinger race mini class. I got 25th out of like, I don't know, 40 or 50 kids. I was 23rd, but I got a flat and got last in one race. But I didn't do well in that because I didn't train, like, at all. Zero training. I was on the track team in the spring. I ran a 5:45 mile, but like it was only like 5 kids on the track team, and I don't even remember who the coach was. And we just ran a couple times, and then we did like one race. So it like barely ran for that. And I never ran one time practicing. I was a bike racer. But then we went and did the Chogun Trungpa, got out of school 2 weeks early, did the Chogun Trungpa funeral for 2 weeks, and then did school for like a week, and then school ended, and then for like a whole month, like month and a half or 2 months, we did a road trip to California, like LA and San Francisco and like Marin County and all that kind of stuff. And and then came back here, and like a week later the bike race started, like less than a week later. So I was just sitting in a car and like, at festivals and like and stuff like for the whole damn summer, racing against kids who were training every damn day for it. And so I didn't do well, and then my parents blamed that on me because my parents didn't want me to race bikes because they didn't have any value for it. They're from the South and older, and thought that bikes were like too expensive, and it was too. My mom was under the impression that competition, if you're not winning, then you get depressed, and then you're gonna wish that you never did it because you didn't win, because she's got twisted in her head. And my father was afraid of money, thought bikes were too much and stuff. So I wasn't allowed to race in '88 because I had Osgood-Schlatter knee disease, and then my father made me quit after. And then I never even really was a bike racer. I'd show up to like one race a year and wasn't really allowed to ride that much. Had to take care of the family, mow the lawn, all kind of stuff, go to help my parents with stuff. And then my father like insisted I don't race in '92. And so, but if I'd have been allowed to be myself and just be a bike racer, I would have been focused on myself. I would only care about myself, and then I hang out with people who are like me. But because I was trained by my parents to not be me and to just, I'm not allowed to ride the bike or whatever, and then I have to volunteer in order for them to hire me. Then I was like, all right, I'll just be anybody's friend. But as far as autistic goes, like an autistic person would be anybody's friend. Like I was like, all right, sure, I'll be whatever friend, because it's like one big happy family. But the problem with doing one big happy family idea is that now you're friends with people who like aren't like you, and when you're friends with somebody who aren't like you, they're friends with you for an actual reason, to help them, but you're friends with them to like help them. So you're just a tool. And when you're just somebody's tool, that means they end up not liking you because they're like you're too nice and you're too forgiving, and then they just end up like dissing you and like not wanting to be your friend at all. There's this kid named Tom who was like that. He ended up dying of a paragliding accident. It was like, but I was never going to talk to that motherfucker again because he was like just a user. And then I had another friend who was like, who I ended up not being able to be friends with anymore because he got like jealous of me and started screaming at me all the time and smashing my house apart in front of me. Had to kick him out. And yeah, so it's like autistic people have the mistake of making friends with people who they should not be making friends with. Because like to an autistic person, everybody is normal and acceptable, but you're not acceptable to them because. And I think you stress people out because you're just interested in too much. Like my friend who flipped out, he started screaming at me and I had to kick him out. Like I couldn't get him to look at my website. Like I couldn't get him to lay eyes on my website at any page of my website. I'd be like, every once in a while I'd be like, can I show you my website? No. Can I just like, for you to look at it, just to show you it and no. Can I tell you about it? No. And like, that's all I did. He was like my best friend from the 8th grade. And that's all I did was work on my website, and all of a sudden he doesn't even want to know the website. And it's kind of like this bizarre, like, I don't know, anger or jealousy or something. Anyway, so then they don't want to be your friend. And so you end up with no friends, and then you're like, well, I don't want to be friends with anybody then. Because then you go back, you revert back to where you were as a kid, and you're like, oh yeah, life is about improving yourself. And so now all my time is going to be spent improving myself. But then that causes problems with my mom because she's normal. And so she's like, oh, but you don't have friends. Something's wrong. And it's like, but I'm busy all day long working on something. You know what I mean? So it's like with a normal person, you have to fit in. You have to dot all the I's and cross all the T's in terms of like normalcy, consensual reality. And if you skip any of those, like you're out and you're different, and it doesn't matter why though. Like they don't need a reason. Neurotypical people don't need a reason to make monkey faces at you and thinking that that's like supposed to be like a language. It's like if you want me to react to your monkey faces, I will. But I'm trying to stay focused. You know what I mean? But then because you're staying focused, you get accused of not noticing the monkey faces, even though you did. So I think the difference is that autistic people are just, and that's why people are always up online like, I'm autistic, because autistic people are just better. Like now MMA, like some guy, Gordon Ryan's like, yeah, to be a good MMA fighter, you need the perfect mix of autism and steroids. And then some other dude, I saw some other kid was like, yeah, man, I'm like slightly autistic. My old girlfriend, Kirsten, was like, she thought that I was autistic for a long time, and then I talked her out of it eventually. But she used the word autistic like obsessed. She's like, yeah, I got super autistic today cleaning. So it's basically becoming a synonym for extreme concentration. So if you can have extreme concentration of trying to figure out the entire grid, like the entire reality of what you're doing. So an autistic person like approach is different. Like MMA, for example. An autistic person would learn MMA by memorizing all of the moves inside and out, like on paper. They just memorize them in your head, and then they would go and they would practice memorize them and get really good. You know, they get obsessed with it. A normal person would be like, would want you to take them by the hand. They'd be like, so what's the first step? And then they'd try to practice the first step, and they're not interested in any of the other parts. And then they learn the other part when then they learn the other part. But if you're obsessed with something, you want to get good at something, you're gonna learn way faster the autistic way. And so that's why the school system doesn't work with autism. Like, I couldn't pass the chemistry class, and that's why I didn't get into like CU, and apparently didn't like officially graduate or something. I don't know what the fuck this dude was talking about, but the lady told me to drop out of chemistry class in high school because I was getting like D pluses in the test, but I was showing up every day to the class. I shouldn't have dropped out. This fucking man-hater bitch was just trying to sabotage me because she had too many people in the class, but I shouldn't. But she's like, you need to drop out because you suck. But the reason that, I don't do well in like math classes in school and chemistry as an autistic, I'm assuming, is because the way that they teach it, like they don't let you learn. They're like, today's lesson is this. Everybody focus on today's lesson. It's like, okay, but what are we learning though? Oh, we're not learning that yet. Okay, but like, I want to learn it now. Oh no, you can't learn it now. And it's the same thing with like piano teaching. My parents brought over a piano teacher because we had a piano when I was like 8 or something. And she's like, oh, we're going to do the class. And I'm like, okay, well, teach me a song. And she's like, oh no, but I'm going to do Mary Had a Little Lamb. And I'm like, okay, but you play a song. She's like, oh no, but I'm not going to play the song because it's for you. And I'm like, okay, well, teach me a good song. And she's like, oh, but you can't learn that. So like the autistic wants to learn the complete song on the first day. And there's no reason why not to. Just play the song, and then I'll try to play it. And then if I miss and then I can't do it, and then that's when I tone it down. But like regular people, they want you to start toned down way below your level. And that just bores the hell out of you. So I told my parents, I'm like, this bitch isn't listening to me. I'm not going to have any more piano classes from that motherfucker. If you want to get me an actual person who's going to listen to me, you can bring that person over to teach me the actual song. But I'm not going to be doing Mary Had a Little Lamb for the first fucking month. Okay? And that's why I could never learn math or chemistry in high school because I'm just bored out of my mind. The teachers are like, carry the X over Y the B and the Y and shit. And it's like, okay, but where is this going? So if I wanted to learn chemistry, like in high school, if I were to redo it, I would never show up to a single one of those chemistry classes. I just buy a chemistry book, and I just do the chemistry tutor. I just do the chemistry book. I try to learn all of it at the same time. And then whenever I got stuck, I would go to the tutor and I say, here, I'm stuck on this one. And then they get me unstuck. And I would go, okay, good. Now I'm stuck on this one. Can you get me unstuck on this one? There'd be like a dozen of them because I'd be studying them all at the same time. There's no sequence. And then you get stuck. And then I would learn the first lessons from some qualities of the end lessons, and the end lessons would be helped from the first, but I don't learn like one step at a time. If you're going to one step at a time me, I'm just going to start daydreaming, and then I'm not going to learn a goddamn thing, and then you're going to give me the test, I'll get a D plus or whatever, and then you'll kick me out of the class. Then I won't get into college, and then the neurotypicals get ahead in life, and people like me get kicked out of school, even though we're way more ambitious than everybody. And so back to like my timeline, like I'm here talking about the timeline, saying that human destiny is omniscience. People going on about like AI. Well, what about the powers of your brain in the future by utilizing technology? And so, you can't be omniscient. So let's define it. Omniscience is 150 things memorized from an image. Then you can identify it. You know, you can identify what is and who it is and all that and all the information from it. From a 500-year period in a country. So I only made one so far from England. England 1500 to 2000. There's 150 things because there's three different sections. It's science, culture, and politics with different colors. Science is on blue background. War, war and treaties with a red background. Science with a blue background, and then culture with the brown. And you look at the image, you know, in the three, so it's three of them per decade. So it's 150 for 500 years, and that's omniscience. So you look at it and you memorize omniscience. Or if you do the random number generator, 0 to 2000 with the 200 decades. If you get if you get every decade right, and you memorize all the decades, or you can list them all the decades, that's omniscience. You literally know everything. And so I'm here yapping on about omniscience this, omniscience that, and like regular people. Like, I don't know if I don't know any autistic people, and I don't know what autistic people would say about that, but regular people are like, because they're like, number one, they're like, that's impossible. Omniscience impossible. And then they're like, number two, well, if you're going to qualify omniscience, it's not omniscience, so why do that? Number three, they're like, who are you? Like, who hired you? What group are you part of? And then they're like, it's not for me because it's too much work. You know what I mean? It's like just excuses. So anyways, I'm hoping that autistic people will jump into my timeline and try to memorize stuff, because people memorize history because, you know, there's people out there who are like, I don't know, maybe they're autistic, but there are people out there who are like, yeah, I memorize every day of my life. Mr. Good Memory, memorize every day of life. Nobody cares about every day of your life. People care about every day of history. Let's see somebody be autistic that way. Anyways, I'm about to run out of batteries, but that's basically my impression of autism, and that's my explanation why I have all these similarities with autism. I don't like stickiness. I need to be clean. I can't have my skin stick against each other. Don't have any friends. Can't get hired. Got horrible grades in school. Yet I invented something that makes me think that I'm the most brilliant person ever. So you're kind of like isolated because you just have different values. It's kind of like I think in the end it boils down to your values. Your brain, you're built different in that you're more, your values are knowledge, and you're way more ambitious, you know? And those level 3 autistics, maybe something with their brain, they're just so obsessed. They just get way too obsessed. So maybe in 100 years, you could actually teach level 3 autists who can't talk. You could kind of teach them to be balanced so they can talk enough, but then use their superpower of concentration to like do some pretty amazing things, you know? And then rub off on other people. I think in 100 years, there isn't going to be autism versus not autistics. I think we're all going to be like on the spectrum. We'll all be like level 1 autistics, but there'll be very few level 3s, but there'll be no more what we used to call neurotypicals, because people will just be so hungry to learn. Anyways, I'm all about to run out of batteries. Talk to you next time.